And thanks for staying with us here on The Real Story. It's Native American Heritage Month, a time when we reflect on the rich contributions of Native American tribes and their people and their massive role in our communities, both culturally and economically. With me now is Beth Regan Morning Deer, Vice Chairwoman and Justice of the Mohegan Tribal Council of Elders. Thanks so much for being with me here, Beth.
We come to Emma, gladly.
Thank you so much. So Beth, as much as we can celebrate Native American accomplishments and representation all year long, this month is really meant to recognize the many things tribes do that often go unrecognized, correct?
Absolutely. I'm so glad you said we could recognize them more than just a month. But
of course. So we've talked a lot on this show before about our state's economic position currently, which is better than it has been for quite some time. Mohegan has some staggering numbers as to how much they contribute to our state's economy. $5 billion to the Connecticut budget, $500 million a year spent at Connecticut businesses. So tell me more about some of the ways the tribe is impacting the state's economic operation.
I think the tribe is a great partner economically with the state. Think about the thousands and thousands of jobs that we provide for for people that live in our state and perhaps even outside of our state. But I often like to say, think about what it takes to run a business and what you need in that business for restaurants, for just HVAC, for the carpets, for the uniforms, all of that, the production of a business. A lot of our business is done right here in Connecticut with Connecticut producers, et cetera. So I think we give so much to the economy. Think about the payment in lieu of taxes that we provide to the state and local governments. So I think it's important to recognize that, and I appreciate that question. I also think it's important to recognize charitable contributions. As a matter of fact, just last week, our council members, my colleagues, while I'm here with you today, were out delivering turkeys throughout all of South, hundreds and hundreds of turkeys for the community for the upcoming holiday.
Absolutely, that's wonderful. So let's pivot a little bit to education now. Mohegan does work reforming and informing curriculum about Native American history. What are some of the ways the tribe is getting involved in education here in the state?
Education has been a tradition of this tribe since colonial times, since the time of Uncas, really. But I really think that with the Tantaquidgeon Museum that opened in 1931, actually, which is actually the oldest Indian-owned and operated museum in the country, really was the foundation of our educational outreach, because one of the beliefs that our tribe holds near and dear to its heart is you really can't hate someone you know a lot about. So education is at the foundation of that, starting with the Tantaquidgeons. Today, we're celebrating this year our 20th anniversary of the Mohegan Challenge Grant Program. Yes, this challenge grant has offered hundreds of thousands of dollars to hundreds of schools where we give them a monetary gift to help provide resources in their classroom, but also we bring them to our museum for an in-reach to teach them about our history and culture, which is done by tribal members today. You know, we don't want people to think we're only part of the past, right? Okay, so we're there to help them learn that. So we also provide them to not only come there, but we'll send a representative to their school. We have plenty of educational opportunities. Our greatest, I think, and latest program right now is perhaps our Educators Project.
So it's not just schools, it's also people of all ages with things like the museum.
Absolutely. Anyone can come to the museum. And as a matter of fact, educators and homeschoolers alike can also access an online portal that we provide for educators that have K through 12 curriculum materials, all done for them about Mohegan and Mohegan history.
Lots of different options
Absolutely.
there. And some people might be wondering how they can educate themselves more, speaking of education, especially during Native American Heritage Month, and maybe how they can have better conversations with, their families and their children's about Native American history. Where do you suggest people start if they're looking to have that conversation?
That's a great question. I think they start right here at home first, okay? Look at some of the names that we have here. Some of the names that are, if I said to you, Quinnipiac, Tunxus, okay, Hammonasset, to people. Connecticut, those are places, right? But these are actually, well, except for Connecticut, which is an Algonquian word, these are actually the names of lost tribes here in Connecticut. All right. So start right where you live. Whose land are you on? You're on indigenous land. But I also think it's important to read, okay, to use the resources available to you. We have plenty of resources. There's a blog, Debbie Reese is her name, and she gives very good information on what kind of books are really good for to learn about Native Americans. I would recommend that. I would recommend also not only to visit our museums, right, to patronize Native artists, to learn about Native artists. There's so many things you can do to learn about indigenous people. And I think it starts with education. And I think our parents can help with that. You know, the story of Thanksgiving, as we look towards Thanksgiving, learn the real story of Thanksgiving. That's a very interesting story. The descendants, the Wampanoag descendants and Puritan descendants are still here. You can learn from them. But learn what happened afterwards as well.
Yeah, you had led me into that next question a little bit there.
Good.
You answered it a little bit already, but do you think there are any other misconceptions or misinformation about tribes and Native Americans you wish people knew more about in the lens of the upcoming Thanksgiving holiday?
I do. I wish people understood that what is today the Thanksgiving holiday celebrated throughout this place we now call the United States, right? Is something that happened long, long ago, but Native Americans would never have called that the first Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving to indigenous people, for the most part, is a daily activity of giving thanks to the land that we have, to the resources that we have, to our ancestors. So I think it's important to understand that. That being said, I think it's a fascinating story to learn as well. But I really want people to understand that it's a process to learn what happened, but also it wasn't always a fun story. The tragedies that the Wampanoag people suffered after that 1621 harvest, call it a harvest feast, if you will, is really something that people probably should know.
I think that's an important message looking to Thanksgiving. It's not just about one day a year. You can give thanks every single day.
Absolutely, and that's what we do.
Yeah. So now, of course, history was made when President Biden appointed your tribe's chief, Lynn Malerba, who is the first Native American to ever hold the seat of U.S. Treasurer. How did that make you feel when you found out about that?
She's our shining star. As a matter of fact, having been on the Council of Elders, she really came to the Council of Elders because the Council of Elders appoints our chiefs, and to ask for our blessing, and as the process was going forward. And we were able to keep that a well-kept secret for a long time. It was really hard. She really is our shining star. Chief Matawi Matahash, Many Hearts, is really a perfect name for her. She's been a leader in our tribe, has helped our tribe through its governance, through its economic development as our tribal chairwoman at one point. But we're so happy that we can share her with the rest of Indian country. That they have now her talents available. She's going to be heading the office, I believe it's the Office of Tribal and Native Affairs, which is part of Treasury. So she'll be able to help other indigenous people and their relationship with Treasury in terms of financing and tax equity. So we're so happy we could share our shining star, I should say, with the rest of Indian country.
Absolutely. And speaking about that, do you think representation like this is important at, all different levels of government?
It's critical. This is a very diverse nation. We need diverse voices and diverse participation. And I think this is a great example of it.
So talking about government, we're looking ahead to the upcoming next legislative session starting in January. Does Mohegan have any policy or policies they'd like to see prioritized or anything you'd like to see addressed?
That's really under the purview of our tribal council, and as a member of our Council of Elders, I can certainly speak to that. We do have leadership meetings together to discuss things, but I think the foundation of our relationship with the state of Connecticut is the acknowledgement of our sovereignty. That Mohegan Tribe is a sovereign nation, and as so, we want to take care of our tribal members and our tribal citizens, just like the state of Connecticut does. So I think it's important that we recognize that tribal sovereignty and that foundation of our probably our relationship. But I think it's also embedded in who we are, mutual respect, mutual cooperation. What we call actually in our business is the spirit of equay, right? That's been centuries. So I think that as long as we have open communication and recognition of sovereignty is probably something that I would say sitting from here. But you know what, Emma? I know that our tribal council and our President Ray Pino, who is also Mohegan and CEO of Mohegan Enterprises, he certainly could offer even more on that. I'm sort of passing that to the
And do you think
business arm.
will there be any sort of meetings leading up? It's January is coming up quickly, but is that something you do as an organization frequently as the legislative session will start?
I could absolutely say that the state of Connecticut and the Mohegan Tribe have ongoing relationships like that, and a really good one.
Great,
Yeah.
Great to hear. And speaking of sovereignty, not just at the government level, but in people's everyday lives, we've been talking about what people can do to further those conversations. How is the topic of sovereignty something people can address within their own homes?
That's a really interesting question. I think you look at sovereignty meaning self-directing. It's a self-directing nation, an independent nation. You can think of it at home, if I was teaching, that we're a sovereign family. This is our home, right? And we want to live in our home, freely in our home, right? I used to teach, and that's one of the things I used to say, let's break it down with sovereignty. So as an independent tribal government, I think people forget that we are a government. We have a culture, we're unique, but we also have a government, and that's the relationship that we have.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again for taking the time to speak with us, Beth.
Thank you, Emma. This has been wonderful. I really appreciate it. I would say, we comptom, we nitomp. Gladly, my friend.
Is that what that's what that means?
That's exactly what it means.
Wonderful. We're going to have you back on and do a little language segment.
Oh, that would be
Teach us
fun.
some phrases.
That would be fun.
Well, thanks again, of course. And that does it for us today on The Real Story. If you want to watch these segments again, you can head to fox61.com or download our free Fox 61 News app. Be sure to watch The Real Story every Sunday at 10 a.m. right here on Fox 61 or streaming on Fox 61 Plus. Have a great rest of your morning.